Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Tuesday Night Tune-Up from Arkansas Motorsports Magazine. I'm Bill Gilkey, along with my co-host tonight, Heath Tate, and we're joined by Pete Butler and Cody Gardner of Sprint Car fame here in Central Arkansas. And we're just honored to have these two drivers on the show tonight. Before we kick the show off, we want to thank our sponsors, Chambers Bank, with 26 locations throughout Arkansas to serve you. True Grit Auction Company up in Dardanelle, Arkansas. I want to take just a minute to talk about True Grit. They've got a couple of great auctions over on their website this week that are coming up. Please check out their website. Also, Heath, I don't know if you know this or not, but the rankings for auctions come out this week. True Grit Auction Service, Dardanelle, Arkansas, ranked number one in the state of Arkansas for online auctions. So see them about your auction needs, whether they're online. They're number one in the state of Arkansas for online auctions, and I think ranked number 41 in the United States. Mm-hmm. So we want to appreciate Gary and Cindy Morrison again for helping Arkansas Motorsports Magazine. Also, we want to thank Shaw Race Cars up in Batesville, Arkansas, builder of some of the nicest and best performing modifieds anywhere in the world. And got to thank old Jimbo Freeman, right, back again this week helping out with Arkansas Motorsports Magazine. So Weston Petroleum there, so thank you, Jimbo, for all you do. And our host sponsor again tonight is Pete Butler Electric Company here in Mableville, Arkansas. So we appreciate everything that Pete does out there. And Heath, I'll flip it over to you for just a little bit, and anything you need to cover.
Of course, there was no racing this week with 15, 20 inches of snow on the ground. Might have been some snowmobile racing or something somewhere. I'm not sure, but no racing. But we had a great show here a couple weeks ago. We had Chuck Knight and Tilly Evans. If y'all hadn't seen that, go back and look at it. It was a great show. Got an article right now that
came out today
with Chuck Knight, a little bit about his NASCAR stuff that he done. So check that out.
So anyway, like I said, with no racing, we'll get right into tonight's show. And Pete, again, it's an honor, and Cody, for y'all to invite us down tonight and answering the phone when we called. And like I said, it's a true honor to be here tonight. So
we appreciate you guys coming and interviewing us.
Well, you're certainly welcome. And the easiest way to get this thing kicked off tonight, like we do a lot of weeks, is Pete, tell us how you got started in racing.
Well, my dad used to run top fuel dragsters and sprint cars, and from the time I can remember, that's what I wanted to do. I was around racing from the get-go, and it's just literally what I wanted to do.
And at what age did you get started?
I started racing go-karts when I think I was about 10 years old. It was at the county line out towards Alexander. They had a rental go-kart track there, and the guy ended up building a little dirt track behind it. And that's basically when the go-karts really got going here in Central Arkansas. Man, when I seen one, it had a little sprint car hood on it, and I knew that's what I had to do. I had no choice. I had to do it.
Now, you talked a little bit there about your dad, and obviously he had a nice career in drag racing, and I want to thank our good friend Bear Brantley for bringing that to our attention. But with him and his drag racing career, how was he towards you wanting to go in circles?
Well, he never really pushed me real hard. He did run the sprint car for a few years. He ran for a guy from like 1963 to 1970 in the drag cars. But he also raced from 67 to 69 the sprint car stuff at the same time. And so he just as far as drag racing sprint cars, he loved it all.
Well, and that's good. And I think that's to be commended. That and there's very few people like that that actually get the opportunity to participate in both sides of the sport, the drag racing and the stock car racing. That's very unique that he was that way.
Yes, sir. He took us to Carlisle. I'm thinking I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I do remember it, to see a drag race.
Drag racing there at Carlisle.
Yeah, at Carlisle, and it was a match race between the guy he used to drive for, who had a new driver at that time, and Don Gartlett's. And you know, it just amazed me. It was pretty awesome. First one I'd been to. But a few weeks later, he took me to the dirt track. And to back up a little bit, when he quit in '70, up until that time he took me, which was about 5 years later, he really couldn't do the racing thing because, you know, it's kind of, he had to wean himself off of it because he was a racer.
Right.
But for some reason we went to the dirt track, and that's really, when I seen sprint cars run, that hooked me. I had to do that.
Did you ever play with the drag car any at all?
Never did. We went, the guy that owned the Top Fuel run for several more years, and we was over at his shop all the time, but it was sprint cars for me all the way.
And when did what year would it have been that you would have ran your first sprint car race?
I turned 16 in August of '84. So we run 2 races with a car that a guy just kind of let us use. And then in '85, we actually bought a car, and that's when we got going in late '84, early '85.
And you actually got into sprint car big time.
Yes, sir. We run. We spent with my dad. Luckily, the kind of guy he is, we put a lot of effort into it, and I wanted to go big time, so we ran as much as we could, and
did a lot of traveling.
Did some traveling early. It was kind of hard to do. We were doing it on our own with my dad's money, and you know, not rich by any means, but very mechanically able to do what we needed to do even without the money. And by '90, that's kind of when I went full time for 4 years.
Okay.
But you know, from '85 up to '90, it was on our own, but we did a lot of racing, and had help from a lot of people, helped us along. You know, kind of like these people right here, Brodex. They helped us along a little bit, and a lot of good people kept us running until finally I kind of reached a plateau where people were helping me more.
You know, you mentioned Brodex Silverheads, and it was probably about the time, or maybe a few years before, that they were really coming into the realm of the aluminum head business. And like you said, very, very fine folks, JV and Jeff and Greg, but that had to be, with your relationship with them, that kind of had to be an exciting time, because, like I said, they were just back in the '80s. JV was getting that thing up and going, and you know, the stuff that was coming out of the shop down there, especially on the sprint car side, had to be an exciting time for you.
Yes, sir. You know, basically from the get-go, we had Brodex heads on everything. Now, they were used when we bought them, but I guess it was probably in, I believe it was '88. We had a pretty good show out here, and Greg Hodnett won the show. Greg was killed a few years ago. A lot of people know about that. And we were a little bitty team, and I guess they were there watching, and we ran second to Greg. And JV walked up to us and said, you know, I think you deserve a little extra bonus for doing what you did with what you had. And that's kind of where our kind of got in with Brodex, and they really, technically, they just kept us in the game for many years past that point.
And obviously you were a great ambassador for their company. So.
Well, we tried to be. I'm not going to say every night we were, but you know, we always showed up to try to be
right
to be that. But yeah, since the beginning, we always had Rodex stuff and have never ever run anything else, and wouldn't. They're just too good people and have been too good to this sport, and just fine people.
Yes, sir. We were talking earlier before the show, but for the people out there that wouldn't know, what different series have you raced on in your career?
Back when I started, NCRA, National Championship Racing Association, was kind of getting going. They were more than the champ cars, and the champ cars naturally were basically sprint cars but longer wheelbase, but a different type. And the World of Outlaws were already going. They got going in '78. So most all of it, when I first got in, it was pretty much kind of open series. Engine cubic inch was pretty much open. There wasn't a whole lot of rules at that point. Now NCRA kind of come into it there in the mid '80s, and everybody kind of limited everything to 410 cubic inch, which kind of brought the cost down a little bit. Because big blocks had been running and all kinds of stuff, but mainly the series around here we run would have been the World of Outlaws, the NCRA stuff. Those were the two biggest in this part of the country.
You know, as far as the different tracks, I know if you came to a race here at the I-30 Speedway, you know, when the sprint cars come on the track, you definitely knew that Pete Butler was in the field. If you was sitting in the stands, you know, you definitely knew Pete was in the field. But it's some great sprint car racing here in Arkansas, not only here at Little Rock, but a lot of legendary racing over at West Memphis, Arkansas, at Riverside. I know you were bound to have traveled over there quite a bit.
Yes, sir, we did.
Talk to us about Riverside, if you would.
Well, Riverside, we went over there. My first year racing sprint car, we went over 2 or 3 times. The biggest thing with Riverside and Little Rock at the time, Riverside had a lot more sponsorship as far as cars. There was a lot more money for better equipment over there at around that time. So when you went over to Riverside, you were racing with some of the best equipment that people had at that time. So, you know, the guys would come over here and run, and even though there was not as good equipment here, there was some good racers here. You had Jim Baker, Buddy Jenkins. You know, most of them had kind of retired when I started in '86, but and they all went over to West Memphis and had a lot of good luck, and so West Memphis was a pretty tough place to race.
And it wasn't just tough for people from Little Rock, but it was tough for anybody that come from any direction.
Yes, sir.
To West Memphis, Arkansas.
Yes, sir,
that was just the hotbed of sprint car racing.
It was. There was, like I said, there was a lot of people that put money into cars over there. A lot of good car owners, and you had Sammy Swindell.
You had come from over there.
Yep. Greg Hodnick come from there.
Yeah. Bobby Davis
Jr. All them guys. Ricky Stenhouse's dad, Ricky Stenhouse Sr. He was over there running. Just a lot of big names come out of there that ended up winning a lot of World Outlaw races over the years.
We're sitting here tonight with Pete Butler, and we've also got Cody Gardner sitting here with us, and Cody, we'll kind of let you catch up and give Pete a break here for just a little bit, but you've had a pretty good sprint car career, and tell us how you got started.
Well, it was I guess it was a similar deal. My dad drugged me to every dirt track he went to, I went to. He didn't have a pit crew, so it was just me and him from the time I was about 5 or 6 years old. And so I was I guess I didn't really have much of a choice. either like it or just be sad and cry on the trailer. But I liked it, so it ended up being, it was a good deal. And man, we went all over the place, and I was 6 or 7, and he drug home an old rusty go-kart, and we started doing that. It's a lot like his deal, started off with karts and just running them at, I think at this time, of course this was later than him, but I-30 had a racetrack in the infield, and GRT was sponsoring a winter series there, and that's what we were running. Kind of got us started. And I think you raced there a little bit,
a little bit
in some of the wedge karts, and we raced there, and we raced at the fairgrounds in Saline County.
Yep.
They had a horse arena that they turned into a go-kart track. That was the first race I ever raced in, was in that horse arena, and it's great, man. I loved it from the start, and it's just one of those things. Once you do it once, you can't get enough of it. You just Saturday's over, and it's like, God, it's Monday,
Yeah.
it's Tuesday, the week just drags. But we did the go-kart deal. We didn't have a lot of success with it, really. We were super low budget, but got into mini sprint racing and got a little bit of help. Dad got smarter, and he kind of out-engineered everybody in that deal and put me in some really good equipment.
Yes,
he scratch built our frames from the ground up. We didn't buy chassis, and built those. And he actually scaled down a full-size sprint car. Is how we built those cars. And back then, mini sprints were real funny looking. They were not proportioned right and everything else. You look at the later ones; they look like a little sprint car now. And he got a sprint car. We scaled it down and drew it out on a piece of plywood and made a jig out of it. And built one side, built another side, set a seat in the middle, and I sat there for hours in that seat while he did his stuff. And we'd do it every night. I'd get home from school, he'd get home from work, we'd build a race car. And then we finally got it done and had a lot of success with it. We won races here, won races in Mississippi, Tennessee, Oklahoma, a lot of points championships. It was just a real successful and fun time. And the motors started getting a little outrageous in the mini sprints as far as what you're racing for versus what you're spending on a 4-cylinder crotch rocket motor.
Yeah.
And I think the last motor we bought, we spent $3,500 on it. He says, hell, I can damn near build a sprint car long block for this. And so that was all the mini sprints. And we got an old sprint car from Ron Parker, is a local guy around here, owned race cars for forever. My dad actually drove for him. He gave me my first race car, which was it was a '96 Gambler, which this was in 2006 or 7, and gave us that car. Pretty much gave us everything we needed to go racing, and we went racing. And I don't know, never really looked back from there.
And about what year was that?
That was, I think it was 06. I graduated 05, 06. I graduated high school in 05. And I was in high school, so it would have been 05 when that happened. But we, man, the car that we had at this time still had 6-pin front end, which is, you know what they are, but it's old style. Had pressure plates for the rear end instead of having, the one big nut and a solid center. It's a completely different deal. It's way old technology, and we had so much fun driving that thing. And ran it for the first year, and found an old car in a barn. Buddy of ours actually said, hey man, he bought some property, and he said, I think I got a sprint car chassis in this barn out here. I said, well, let's go look at it. And it was a fairly late model. It was a 2002 or 3 Max with a body and everything on it. Nothing wrong with it. Been sitting under a lean-to. And we drug that car out and put it together, and that's when we finally got going pretty good that second year. And we ended up winning a race that second year, my first race in a sprint car. And boy, that was the best feeling in the world right there. To actually win a sprint car race was, I mean, my whole life had pretty much culminated up to that. And it was a cool deal.
So you was about like like Pete, it's always been either a kart or a sprint car. You didn't
I never
venture out and tried any other kind of dirt car or.
never did anything. We drove some junior dragsters for Lance Landers one time when I was probably 9 or 10, and golly, I mean it was fun. But I just remember thinking it took so long to get back up there and do it again, the turnaround, and it was cool to do it, but I'd already been racing karts, and it was just a real, boom 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 boom, and I just couldn't get into it. So that was the only time I ever ventured out and did anything else.
Now I've got to ask a question. After the success that you had with the mini sprint chassis that you and your dad built, was there ever the thought process of building a full-fledged
Oh,
sprint?
definitely. We talked about it a lot. The only thing was there was a lot of innovation to be done in the mini sprint world because they were just stuck in a time loop, man. They didn't change for 10 years or so. And sprint cars haven't changed that much. I guess you can still take a 2000, early 2000s model sprint car and you can put it beside a brand new one, and you would be hard pressed to tell me anything that was different.
Well, if you're talking to me and him, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
They've done some things with the cages, the safety bars, and some things like that. But as far as pickup points and just everything else, there's just not a lot has changed on them. So we kind of got away from that. There's plenty of used ones out there, and it just I guess we kind of fizzled out on that deal. But it was rough because it was. Sprint car was such a game changer. I remember the first time I drove one. God, I felt like the racetrack was like this wide, and it was just a weird deal. I remember when I got in it, I was like, man, this thing it felt like it moved so much compared to the karts in the mini sprint. Like the suspension, you could just really feel it rolling around and moving, and it was just a real weird sensation. The whole thing, you turn the car in the corner and it's, the whole thing just sets on the left rear, which is completely opposite to what a car is supposed to do. So it's a weird deal. A lot of people, they want to talk to you about them. They don't know a lot about them. They're like, well, what's it like to drive one? And how do you even explain that?
It's hard to explain.
Yeah,
Try it, Pete, because
well, I tell a lot of people you drive them with your feet probably as much as you do with the steering wheel, or maybe at times more with your feet. The throttle and brake, people talk about, why you got brakes on a race car? Well, you use brakes to go fast in this car. And a lot of them you do, but it's a different animal. It's just something you have to get in and try it, and it'll surprise you.
What's the feeling? Say you're on the front row, green flag drops, enter turn 1. What's it feel like coming off turn 2, going down the back stretch, headed into 3 at I-30?
Well, you ask that, and here's what I can tell you is most of the time, I can't, it's an awesome feeling, but when you go into when that green flag drops, you actually go into a kind of a zone. And
you're not thinking at that point.
You're not really thinking.
Reacting.
You're reacting,
Yeah.
and that's what we tell a lot of people is, the great race car drivers, most of them, they can't tell you everything that's happened out there. It's because everything happens so fast that if you're thinking about it, it's already happened. You're behind it. You're too late. So the one thing I can tell you is the G-forces coming off the corner. And like he said, the car rocks up, and you may come off the corner. You're coming off at a lot of mile per hour. You 50, 60 mile an hour off the corner. But if you don't have a hold of the car, it's going to do things you don't want it to do. And that's kind of the trick to it.
I guess it would be. another interesting point here, the question I've got to ask you, and I'm going to assume that at some point in time, and we all know that the wing plays a big factor in the race out there, but I'm assuming at some point in time, both of y'all have drove some non-wing events.
Yes, sir.
Explain the difference to the folks at home, what the difference driving with the wing versus the non-wing.
Non-wing is a lot more finesse, I would say.
Yeah.
You can't be as radical with how hard you're it looks like the cars are thrown around a lot more, but it feels way slower in the car when you pull the wings off. Yeah. I don't have a lot. I've ran Little Rock several times down the wing, and Creek in Tulsa, and they're both similar. There's just little quarter-mile slick bull rings, and I know when come feature time, it just feels like everything is just slowed way down without the wing, because you're waiting on the car a little bit more.
Best way I can tell you is there's a track in Mesquite, Texas called Devil's Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I know you guys heard of it. It's a kind of a short half mile, but it's a fast track. And the first night I went down there, my first year, was without a wing, and I had a veteran, Johnny Subs, and
Johnny?
he kind of taught me through the track. It was the first time I'd been there, and he said, when you go into that corner and you turn in, when you turn in and you hit the cushion, we call it, the sticky part of the track, he said you need to be back on the throttle when that tire hits it, or you're going to go up, maybe turn over. And that's exactly what I did the first time. I didn't turn over, but I almost did. So it was just totally different to drive it. The next time I went back, we ran a wing. And he kind of explained, he said, when you go down the corner, do not turn left very hard, or you'll end up in the infield. And that wing acts like a rudder, because when you go down on those bigger tracks, you got so much, if you're running 110, 120 in the corner and you turn, that big left panel will turn you into the corner itself.
Yeah.
So you really it's two different totally driving styles.
This is kind of off subject, but the Devil's Bowl deal, I ran here for 2 years here in West Memphis, the only places that we ran. And I think the third year I was in the car, we ran the ASCS, the whole speed week. And Devil's Bowl, I think I-30 was the first night, and Devil's Bowl was the second night, I think. And we got the Devil's Bowl, and I remember when they started hot laps, they dropped the green flag, and I was coming out of 2, go down the back straightaway, and I turned the car 3 times before I ever even got to the corner, because the little movements I thought I was making was just turning the whole car. I had to straighten back up because I wasn't even at the corner yet, because I was so used to the short, racetracks, and that big long straightaway just completely screwed me up. And it took about every lap of hot laps before I actually made one clean lap around that racetrack.
What are the speeds at I-30 compared, say, to a Devil's Bowl?
I think most of the time a winged sprinter at I-30 tracks pretty good. You're probably looking at 100, 110 at the end of the straightaway.
Yeah, on a good racetrack.
On a good racetrack that you can really get in the throttle, not a slick track. Devil's Bowl, you're probably, their back chute going into 3 is a wide open. You run it wide open. You're probably 130 to, I might say 140. That might be stretching a little bit, but 130 mile an hour is a big gain, and you can feel it. Your head kind of moves around from the wind a lot more, and it's a pretty good difference.
But going into turn 3 at Devil's Bowl, you're almost running downhill, and it's a sweeper getting in, the Titan's coming out, and I mean you don't even, God, if you turn the car, it is so minute. I mean, I'm talking about like this. That's it.
So
and it goes.
Most people would be under the impression you're sitting in here doing this, but you're really not.
You're really not. You might see some in-car cameras and it looks like they're really moving, but the way the steering on these cars, they're not moving quite as much as what the steering wheel. There's a lot of bump steer and in these cars. It kind of looks different, but you're not moving the car around a bunch at the bigger tracks, because if you do, you're scrubbing off speed.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get somebody's gonna blow by you.
That's what, to me, what is hard about the big tracks is not scrubbing speed. Having just run around here so much, I struggle on the big tracks. Just for that matter, is because I do too much. You know, I'm trying to drive the car too much, and if you'll just settle down and kind of let the car work and quit fighting it so much, you're gonna be better because you get your momentum built up. You're not scrubbing mile an hour.
You know, and that's something that you wouldn't think about because lightweight car, lots of horsepower. You know, in to somebody that wouldn't know, you wouldn't think that scrubbing off speed would be that big a deal. You wouldn't, but you know, sitting here talking to you guys, it's a momentum.
And the wing is really the big factor of that. The wing is usually, you know, they're saying at 100 miles an hour it's 1,000 pounds of downforce, so it adds 1,000 pounds to the car.
That's 25 square foot. You know, that's the surface area, just with the top one.
Just with the top one. And the side panels, you know, if you turn them into the wind, they're going to slow you down. They've got their purpose when you enter the corner, but anywhere else you want to keep things straight and clean and fast as you can. Short tracks, a little bit different. You can
get away with it.
You can get away with it and make it up.
Of course, Devil's Bowl is a famed sprint car racetrack, just like you know, West Memphis is, but and obviously it's a larger track. But is the best sprint car racing, is it on the smaller tracks or is it on the larger tracks?
You know,
or is it just based off configuration
I
in
think
different parts of the country?
I think it has to do with what motor you're running to.
It does.
A 360 like the ASCS series at Devil's Bowl or Knoxville or some of your bigger tracks, to me, to watch, is boring. The 410s there put on a great show. You know, they do an awesome job. But you know, the 360s, I don't enjoy them.
The bigger tracks, you got Knoxville and Eldora, and if those tracks, if they're real sticky, then 360s you're flat on the floor. You don't ever breathe it. And, you know, somebody's got to scrub off speed for you to be able to do anything with them. Day in and day out, the short tracks are probably going to be the better shows for everybody.
Driving wise, I mean, to me, hands down, the little tracks are so much more fun. 3/8 and down, as a driver, I absolutely love them. When we start talking about, you know, having to go to bigger racetracks, I kind of get the, you know, we can't find somewhere else, you know.
Either one of you ventured out and decided that you were going to go to Tulsa and run the Chili Bowl?
No.
And tried that?
No.
I've run the go-karts at the Chili. It's actually the shootout.
Right.
I guess it's a week or two.
Tulsa
before.
shootout.
Yeah,
Tulsa
Tulsa
shootout.
shootout.
That's week before.
I've run a 2-cycle go-kart there, and it's pretty fast. The midget deal, I never really had anybody kind of come up with anything.
Yeah.
I would like to have done it, but that's a different race, and that's you got to have a lot of luck there, or just be really, really, really good.
I didn't know in your time if you'd ever got out there and tried it or not.
No, I've never run a midget car.
Well, there's a lack of them around here too.
Yeah.
To
Why?
even get hooked.
Why
Well,
do you think that is?
there's not a series that runs around here. I guess, you know, USAC, where do they stay up in
Midwest.
Midwest a lot?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they swing around, but they don't venture down here. And then who else? When you got that Badger midget series, I mean, there's just not a lot of midget series
Around here.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty costly endeavor.
Yeah, that
Well,
actually is.
the motors are so specialized in those things. I mean, you got like a V8 that you cut a bank off of. You know, that's pretty much how they got started. I mean, they've come a long way since then. But that's a lot going on there. It's not like you're just pulling a small block out of an old truck out there and building it for a race car motor. So, I mean, those guys, what were the motors? I mean, last time we were even looking into it, I mean, if you wanted to buy a really good midget motor, you were going to spend $40,000. It's like, God, for a 4-cylinder?
Just not enough around here to justify any of it. And you know, there was a few years back in the 80s where they ran a few shows around here. I think in Houston, they had a lot of shows for them, but as you know, it just kind of faded out. And other than the Midwest and that area, just none of it around here really.
And I don't know if this is the proper way to ask this question, but how strong is sprint car racing here in Arkansas as we move into the 2021 racing season? I mean, is it comparable to what it was in the older days, like when you were starting, or?
Right now, you know, to me, sprint car racing everywhere is kind of down right now. I think it's down. It's definitely down around here. I think the money and the cost of the cars have kind of outrun the area that we're in. There's still quite a bit of it going on, but I do think it's down. I think, you know, it's just like going from the 410 cubic inch to the 360s was a good move and kind of perked things up around because the cost went down. And they've got the 305 classes now.
That thing's growing fast.
It's growing, and it may help it come back, but everybody's still stuck on 360s or 410s, which 410s around here have just disappeared.
Right.
Unless you go up in the northeast.
There's one track. What is it? Missouri's got one track.
Yeah, I think it's Farmington.
Yeah.
Speedway in Missouri. But sprint car racing is hurting a little bit. And I you know, as far as what'll bring it back, I'm not sure.
And I wasn't going to put you on the spot with
well,
that
you
question,
hate to say it, you know,
but you know, one of the things, and we do this with every class that we talk about, and I think I-30 does a tremendous job trying to keep sprint car racing alive. But what do we do? What do we do here in 2021 and beyond to try to enhance it and pick those numbers up?
Well, me, I don't know what it's going to take, because I'm kind of, I don't know, the way things are nowadays, I'm just not feeling real good about what the future holds for it.
You know,
you got to have youth involved.
And I want to say this, you know, and it goes along with what we do here on the show is the history of motorsports in Arkansas. And you know, certainly we don't want to see something like this disappear in Arkansas, because it has been such a staple in the history of motorsports here in Arkansas. So we certainly want to see sprint car racing, you know, continue.
And you said something about youth. How do we keep the kids out here wanting to be involved in motorsports? How do we? That's the big question.
That's parents taking the kids. Take your kids to the races, man. Take your kids out there. What? You show me a 6-year-old kid that's not going to look at a sprint car and go, "Ha, it's the coolest thing ever," and I'll be highly surprised.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to get them out there. It's exposure. Get them there. You know, I think, and I don't know. I think it's kind of society might be. I feel like I can get off on a tangent here a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we've got this instant gratification society, and maybe sitting at the races, you've got downtime obviously between races, between classes. You know, letting people get ready for B mains, or after B's getting ready for A's, reducing that downtime. So you don't have a kid that's used to tapping a screen all day and just getting, you know, whatever he wants right now. Keep them engaged. You know, just let's speed things up. And I know that's hard to do. I'm not a promoter. I've never, you know, ran a race or even tried to.
That's a tough job.
And that is a tough job. I know it is. You know it is. So to keep one rolling, but I don't know. There's got to be a way to keep people engaged and not have them say, well, it was cool when they were out there, but God, we had to sit around so long in between.
Yeah.
And in saying that, you know, you talked about the 305 class that y'all got going now. You know, something like that, does that get kids more involved where they can afford to go race?
Well, you know,
I mean, that's the thing anymore with racing. It's that people can't afford to go do it.
And you know, racing, I don't know, in a sprint car, you don't get a whole lot of people that have never raced and go, I'm just going to buy a sprint car.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of that. So I think it's more or less knowing somebody that does it. And you know, the drivers and the people that do race sprint cars, and all the ones that I know are really good at this. If somebody wants to talk to you, if a kid walked up today and was driving a stock car or something like that, and walked up to me or him and was like, man, I really want to get into sprint car racing. You know, what do I need to do? I would spend every minute I had until he was sick of hearing me, telling him what I thought and what he needed to do and what can I do to help you. He would do the same thing. And most of the guys I know that drive sprint cars are that way.
Right.
I think one thing, not to change that subject, one thing I worry about is the tracks. You know, tracks, building new tracks, going to be next to impossible now with the way government regulations are. And if we lose, let's say we lost I-30, we're done in Central Arkansas to some extent. You know, it's such a perfectly located racetrack to a populated area. And to get those kinds of racetracks anymore in this area is just going to be impossible.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you got to decide: are there fans that are willing to drive to Plummerville, other racetracks that are out still in Central Arkansas but are out more? Have we got the fans that can hold that together? And that, I think that's one thing. I guess if I go back to what I said earlier, that's what scares me the most is losing racetracks, because I'm afraid we won't have no more.
Yeah, I think they're gone if you lose them. It seems like I was hearing something a couple of years ago about West Memphis going up up against some kind of city council vote or something about.
I think they did.
Yeah, and they ended up. I mean, they come out on the good side of it, but just the fact that that's even happening is a scary thing.
Yep.
So,
You know, and obviously it's off camera, you can't see it, but an interesting point I want to make, and you know, we talked about getting people, especially younger people, in the sport, and I want to use something over in this room that's off to the side of us, Pete. You got a Bear sprint car chassis sitting over there. You know, and I'm sure back when you started out back in the 80s, and I just kind of think it's fallen off with the younger generations. You know, there were a lot of people back when you started out that walked in a shop and seen something like that and would try to buy it, and if they could purchase it, they took it home and they gradually put that thing together.
you're right.
Sir.
And I don't think we're seeing that these days.
Another thing that me and a good friend of mine have talked about a lot is, man, there is not enough open trailers. Look here.
We discussed this.
Okay, I've talked about it too. Everything's in an enclosed now. Most of them, unless it's super big time, there's no decals on the trailer. It's just a dually pulling a white trailer. So when open trailer, which I've spent more of my life on an open trailer than I have in an enclosed. And that was one of the greatest things in the world. You're driving down the road or pulling into a gas station. You could not get fuel in your truck with an open trailer with a sprint car on it without somebody coming up to you and going, man, where are y'all going? What is that thing? Or just being a diehard sprint car fan. God, I've watched you in so-and-so, or can my kid sit in it?
Right.
Hell yeah, put him in there, you know.
They're going down the road and 4 or 5 kids standing on the side of the road and they go by.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the kids
Yeah.
if the kids don't see the cars going by, they don't know to tell mom and daddy to take them to the races.
That's exactly that is great advertising right there.
I know years ago when I used to come to the races at I-30 a lot, you know, even as I got older, and people were still using a lot of open trailers. It was fun for me just to watch people pull in.
Yeah.
You know, with that type of setup.
And I-30 has a cool setup where the pay window is the general admission window right out front. So I can remember when I was little and the races were over, every car that you just seen on the racetrack was now on an open trailer sitting right out front. You had to walk right by it to go get in your vehicle. Like, that was the coolest thing ever back then.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I hate to say it, and we've said it 100 times on this show, and talking about this, I think, and I know that, especially the guys that travel all over the country and everything, I know the importance of an enclosed trailer. But I truly believe that the enclosed trailer has been a major downfall from the spectator side of motorsports in Arkansas.
I think you're right. I would have to agree with you, especially at a local level. You know, a lot of these cars are running around town. You know what I mean? They're going to the car wash and using that. I mean, they're around here. You just don't see them because they're locked up in a trailer. Yeah. You don't drive by houses and see an open trailer with a car sitting on it over there anymore.
But like I said, little kids, don't know if in that enclosed trailer that there's a race car in there or a trailer load of bananas inside.
Exactly.
I mean, they don't know.
Exactly.
And at that point, they don't care.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they see that race car, they want to go to the races. And I know the importance and the value of an enclosed trailer, but I also think that they have been a very detriment to the sport. And I'm assuming after my statement, Heath, we won't pick up any enclosed trailer sales as sponsors for the show, but I hate it. But
Sorry about
And the
that.
thing
no, we
No,
discussed
I mean,
that
the
a
thing
lot.
about it is same way. I mean, I've got an enclosed trailer,
Yeah, everybody does.
so
I've got 3.
So it's just
Yeah.
it's
It's just the nature of what's going on.
I've got an
and-
enclosed trailer I haul my dirt bikes in. You know,
So,
I put them in the truck.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but you know, and then some of it's like what you guys are doing. Y'all are getting out and trying to go back over things and stir up interest in it, and it helps.
Thank you.
Is it the total answer? I would hope it is, but we need a lot of it.
We're like we discussed earlier before the show, we're looking for a lot of the history of the sport, but at the same time, we want to talk to you guys about what you feel like could benefit the sport in the future. And that's 2 of the things that we're out doing.
Yeah.
The other thing is getting the cars maybe out into the community a little more. We had Colton Steakhouse sponsor us out of Benton for a little while, and one of the things we did was we took the car up there once a month or so and set it in the parking lot. Saturday of the race, we just take it up there that morning. Everything was ready, roll it out till 3 o'clock, and then drive to the racetrack. And it was a cool deal because you got so much traffic, going through there, and everybody's looking at it. And I mean, if you could organize a deal maybe like that gets
and just doing something like that. If that got 4 or 5 people to the track, that's 4 or 5 people to the track.
Yeah.
Which may have a kid with them that one of these days is going to say, "Hey, I'm going to do that," and he's going to build a car. So I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, youth is the key to keeping anything going, really. I mean, and I don't care what it is. You got to have young people because we're not going to be here forever. And if nobody's behind us going, man, that's cool, then it's dead, man.
When I started sprint cars, that go-kart deal leading up to when I started sprint cars, you had a lot of guys at I-30 before we started doing the go-karts. They were getting older, but they were still great racers. I mean, some of the best that's ever been around here. So don't take that the wrong way. I didn't mean it that way, but the go-kart deal, you had me, you had Ricky Logan, Tim Crawley, a lot of the racers you've seen in the 80s and 90s come from that little go-kart track over there. And that thing was pretty big and made a lot of good drivers. His daddy, Johnny,
he raced out there.
He raced out there. That's how we know each other. I've knew his dad long before he was even thought of. So, and we all run go-karts, and then Johnny got a sprint car, and it was here in our shop, and then I got a sprint car. So a lot of the stuff you've seen in the 80s and 90s come from that go-kart track. And we don't have that here no more. That's just gone. I know there's go-karts around, but they're not really being pushed like that was back at that time.
And that's another way of getting the kids interested.
Yes,
You're
it
right.
is.
Yeah. Get a cart, start there.
Yeah.
And then
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, that's more or less, I would be willing to say that's 3/4 of the people who are racing probably started out in a go-kart. But probably more than that, really.
And what a lot of people may not understand is there's a lot of skill to racing a go-kart. A lot of
Yes,
people
there is.
have the idea
Yes.
that you're just out there puttering around the yard, but in all honesty, to be a top flight go-kart racer, there's a lot of skill
A lot.
involved in that.
Yes, there
And,
is.
and I think if you look around the state and you look at different classes and you look at a young person, especially that comes from a go-kart, case in point, Ashton Wilkie, IMCA modified driver, uh, you know, undoubtedly that his time that he spent in a go-kart has obviously helped his IMCA modified skills. And I think a lot of parents and a lot of kids out here maybe are overlooking that.
Yeah.
And I when I say parents, I'm talking about people in their 20s and 30s that may want to get into either sprint car racing or stock car racing. Go spend a few years racing go-karts.
Yeah.
Because you will definitely pick up some skills there that will help you when you go to the bigger car. And the other thing is, it will the maintenance program,
Yes.
the weekly maintenance program,
They will
in my
work you
opinion,
hard.
on the go-kart is
Yes.
as tougher
Yes, it is.
than the full-size car.
Yeah.
And it'll at least give you the idea: is this something that I really want to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I really have the commitment to do this?
It's a cost effective way to
Right.
test the waters. so
But
to
you
speak.
will pick up so much.
It's still racing. You're
Yes.
going through the same motions that we do on a Saturday night. You're doing all the same things. It's a different deal.
But if you take a youngster, and I'm just going off the ones that I'm seeing now, the ones that's been in the go-karts and they get in the cars versus the ones that haven't been in the go-karts that get in a car. The kid that's been in the go-kart is miles ahead with his program.
Yes.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make for people out here: do not discount the go-kart racing as far as advancing your racing career, because there's a lot of skill there to learn and pick up.
They are not toys.
No.
They're not. Most people just don't realize what a racing go-kart really is, and it is anything but a yard cart. And I forgot to mention Wendell Wallace and Lake.
Yeah, I was going to mention
me and
Wendell.
Wendell raced the whole time go-karts. So you had Wendell, me, Tim Crawley, and Ricky Logan, and Eric Sandage. And the one thing was different then that's now. The tracks back then, the tracks they have now, a lot of them they run slicks on the dirt, and they're kind of one lane.
Mhm.
Back then, they were basically like a car track. They had a cushion on them. They might have ruts in them, and so they were a little different back then. They were you really had to drive really hard, and you would come home with bruises on you just from going around them. So it was a little different back then. I'd like to see them go back to that, because I don't know. I just think it would be. I've watched a lot of go-kart racing now, and they've kind of made the tracks easy to maintain, and that's why they've done what they've done. Cutting up a track and getting it prepped. It's hard to do week in and week out. So
Yeah, I don't know that they cut a go-kart track at all.
they don't do that anymore. So they're kind of like almost like asphalt.
They let them. I mean, they'll be as hard as this concrete.
Right.
That's
But there
how they
again,
start.
that's a hard job. So I'm sitting here talking about it. I want it like this, but I'm not the one doing it. So
But then driving the carts on that on the one lane rubber, you get back to a deal where your job is not to scrub speed
yeah,
on that.
same
You
thing.
got
Exactly.
you got a 10-horse
And,
motor.
and that's what I'm getting at on the go-kart. It's really a momentum deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And like I said, I go back to it. There is so much to learn.
Yes, there is.
And I think so many people out here that want to get into racing overlook that step of the go-kart.
Yes,
I
they do.
really do.
They do.
And there is so much to learn there.
It would be nice to have something like that going here in Central Arkansas, but kind of goes back to how do you get a track going? Can you get a track going? That's kind of we're back to tracks.
Shifting gears just a little bit, and we'll start with you, Pete. What was some of your most memorable races?
Well, naturally, I guess my biggest one was winning the short track nationals out here at I-30 in '96. That was I guess that's probably my high point. I had a 5th place with the World of Outlaws at Devil's Bowl. Run a lot of top 10s with them, but that short track nationals, we won some races in Dakotas, Kansas. Won a lot of races, but that short track nationals, they put your name on the back of a shirt and it just kind of sticks with you. you know, all race car drivers have egos. They've got to have to be good. So I guess I kind of fall back on that a little bit. That was a tough one to get, and probably.
Speaking of your time on the World of Outlaws, when you're traveling with that series and racing with that series, what's it feel like inside when you pull out on that track, knowing that you're out there with 24, 25 of the best sprint car drivers in the world? What does that feel like inside? Because knowing that you're out there with them,
It's
when you're out there on that parade lap, what?
The first one I ever run was pretty tough. I mean, it kind of, you spend your whole life wanting to do something and you finally get to do it, and you know you're out there with the very best. And it's tough. It's intimidating. But after that, you learn that when you pull out on that track, you have absolutely got to leave everything out there on that racetrack. I know that's kind of an old cliche, but it is absolutely true with the World Outlaws. You better, everything's got to be right. Your mind's got to be right. It's tough. It's tough. You try to treat every race the same, like it pays $1 million to win it. But when you're in the pits with the World of Outlaws and you're on that track, it makes you step your game up. You find something that you might not normally have. At least that way it's for me, and maybe that means I wasn't as good as they was because I looked at it a little bit different. But I always tried to put the most forward with it. Definitely.
Was it a little bit intimidating at a driver's meeting with Sammy Swindell, Steve Kinzer, Doug Wolfgang, Bobby Allen?
All them guys, and I run against all of
Jack
them. Jack Howdenchild, Dave Blaney.
Yeah.
Them guys, Knighton, Annie Hillenberg, Doug Wolfgang. I could just go on with the guys I've run. It was always, it wasn't always intimidating because I learned to adapt to it, and you had to. At one point I was doing it for a living, so I had to show up and just not worry about it.
The first time's almost overwhelming, though.
The first time is definitely overwhelming. It's not.
It's all these guys you see on, in
grew up
magazines
watching them,
and TV, and then you're like,
wanted to be them guys. So it's intimidating at certain times, but you adapt to it, or you don't do it.
But keep in mind, there were a lot of people out there that wanted to be Pete Butler.
That's what I was going to say. They were saying the same thing.
Not as many though.
Yeah.
Not as many.
I was
Not as many
guys.
as Steve Kinzer or Sammy Swindell. There was a lot more, and I was one of them.
Yeah.
I wanted to be them.
Yeah.
Sure did.
What about you, Cody? What are some of your more memorable races?
Well, I think we've won all the memorial races around here. Of course, we've never won anything as big as short track, but
It's a hard one to get.
yeah, we've had some good showings in it.
Yes.
We ain't never got that. They never got it going our way that good. I guess the best one was probably the first sprint car race, going back second year in the car, that we ever won. We had ran a non-wing race the week before at Little Rock, and I flipped off the back straightaway and actually landed in the woods before it quit flipping, and it wadded up the whole front of the car right here, and the torsion arm and everything was just bent all to pieces. Well, Dad just got a hacksaw and cut that whole corner of the car off and put a coilover on the right front. So the car had 3 torsion bars and a coilover. And we went out and won with it the next weekend with the coilover still on the car, put the wings back on it. And that was just such a crazy deal because people just don't do that. And that just goes back to my dad just being like, just no quit. If it would have been up to me at that point, I'd be like, God, we got to wait until we get another car, or something. And he was just like, you want to race or you want to go home? And I'm like, hell, I want to race. He was like, "I'll fix it," and we end up going out there and winning. And
But
it
you know,
was,
the sport needs more of that.
Yeah.
well, that's his dad. His dad even today has like zero quit in him. As old as he is,
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but he's got so much just junkyard dog in him, man. Just you cannot get him down or shake him off a task that he's got his mind on. And my dad's a lot like that, and
That's what's got both of us to
that's exactly
where we
what
were
it
at.
is.
Those two guys right there,
Yeah.
they that was it.
I would have never financially. I could never afforded to do this. He couldn't afford it either.
But he found a way.
Yeah, but they found a way to do it. And I guess they're really a lot alike now that I think about
Yes,
it.
they are.
And, you know, I really respect that.
Yes.
And I think that's, you know, I think we've lost a lot of that in sport.
I would agree. I think some of it, money now, a lot of people have a lot of money, and it covers some of it up. You know, you don't have to do that anymore. And so I think there's still some of them people there, but the money's kind of covered it up in the sport a little bit.
Yeah.
You, and you've obviously won it, but how important has the short track nationals been to sprint car racing, not just here in Arkansas, but abroad?
Very important. You know, I can't to kind of explain it. I can't really explain it, but you know, it's a big race, and it's always drawn a lot of cars from everywhere, Canada, all over the United States, and it's kept I think money in sprint car racing in this area. I know it's kind of hard to explain. That's the hard part to explain, but it's kept enough people with the availability to do it in this area, to me.
What about you, Cody? What's your feelings?
Yeah, I mean, short track nationals it's been around forever, so I've been to every one since I was around. So I mean, it's you go to other racetracks and people find out you're from Little Rock, and they're like, "Oh, short track nationals." You know?
I mean, it's an iconic
Yes, it
race.
is.
Well,
It's an iconic
anywhere
race.
you go, you will. I mean, if you talk to enough people after the races, somebody will be like, "Oh man, they got a short track national story." You know, everybody's got one. So, be it racing or after the races or whatever, you know, it's just it's the whole environment. It's an experience. It really is. And I've been to a lot of races, and I don't know, that one's just
It's big for this area.
for 360 and for this area. You know, there's just a lot going on.
I've been to the Knoxville Nationals 3 times. Big. It's the biggest one ever. But for this area, the short track nationals, in a way, it rivals it. It's got that little atmosphere about it that's kind of, you know, and the drivers step up to it, and that's what makes it great.
And the thing is, the sport needs that.
Yes, it
and,
does.
And what a lot of people don't also understand from the economic standpoint, the state of Arkansas needs that.
Yeah, they do. They benefit from it,
Exactly.
and have for many
I
years.
mean, you can't get a hotel around here when the race is going.
Right.
And all the restaurants are full. I mean, it's a good deal.
Now, there's a question I'm dying to ask before we close out the show tonight, but and most people may not know this. It's why the sprint car has no starter on it.
Yes, no starter.
Okay. When you're working on these things during the week and you've got to fire it up and you're sitting here in the shop, what do?
Put tires on it, and carry it out there and start it.
You strap a board to the front of one of our trucks, which he drives.
Yeah, the service truck I drive every day has a board on the front of it that starts sprint cars.
Yeah.
So we actually pull up on jobs, and people are like, "You got that? Is that a wood bumper you got on there?" They'll want to know what it is, and it's a whole deal. So it's great.
It makes it a little difficult, but that's what's unique about them.
Yeah.
Well, before we close out here tonight, and it's just been absolute amazing getting to sit here and talk with y'all tonight. But Pete, what does 2021 look for you, race wise?
Well, we hope to run all all the races out here at I-30. And maybe a couple out of town. The guy I drive for, Rod Hanna, he's out of Rockwall, Texas. And I'd like to go down there and run a couple shows in that area. And, you know, whether we're going to win or even run good, that remains to be seen. But I still want to try. I don't know if I got a point to prove, but I want to try.
And in saying that, where I could sit here and everybody knows, it's been since 2006.
2006 was the last year. I got hurt then.
You got hurt racing and been out this long, and now you're hoping this year is going to be the year that you get to come back. And
We hope so. I had surgery for my injury. I think it was 2010, and last year we kind of figured out a situation to help me a little bit better. It don't totally fix the problem, and it may keep us from running real good. I don't know, but I'm hoping this year is a full race year.
Right.
That's what I'm hoping.
we do too.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
we're
that, guys.
excited that you're going to be back, and I'm sure the people and fans in Central Arkansas are going to be as excited as what we are.
I hope so. I hope we don't disappoint them. You know, you don't want to see a guy go out on the bad end of things, and it may happen that, you know, he's, after a few races, everybody's saying, well, he's done. He needs to go ahead and give it up. But we're going to be there to either make that happen or say, well, he's got a little bit left in him. So we'll see what
We'll
happens.
know either way.
We'll know either
Yeah,
way. One way or another,
yeah.
we're going to find out.
I think you got a little bit left in
I
you.
hope so.
I can tell your spirit. You've
I-
got a little bit left in you.
I think he does. I've been pestering him for 5.5, almost 6 years now to get off his butt and get this deal going.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think we finally.
He's been a little motivation, I promise you.
Well, what about you, Cody?
2021, I'm super excited actually for 2021. I'm sitting extremely well. We're driving for Tiny Gaines. He's out of North Little Rock over here, and we've done a little bit of a program overhaul this winter. Actually started it at the end of last year, just acquiring a couple things that we were missing, motor-wise, suspension-wise, just I'm probably sitting in the nicest equipment that I have ever sat in my whole life, starting this year.
Well, that's got
And
to be exciting, and
I'm
know
super
that
excited.
you're
Yeah,
obviously looking forward to this season.
yeah,
So.
I'm getting real antsy. It's getting close, and we're getting everything back from Powder Coat, and he's going to McKenzie, Tennessee in the morning to pick up bodies for the cars. And when he gets back tomorrow, it's pretty much all hands on deck. We're mounting bodies and building cars, and we'll be ready for play day on the 13th. So,
Great.
You'll see some wins out of Cody this year. I believe that.
Good
You'll
deal.
definitely see it.
You can tell he's got the spirit
Right.
in him as
Yeah.
well. Well, gentlemen, I tell you, it has been an enjoyable evening and an honor that y'all answered the phone when we called and went ahead and invited us down. And Heath, where are we going next week on Tuesday night tune-up?
Oh, we'll be at Jack Sullivan's Cadillac Chassis. We'll be up there visiting with him and
In his new operation.
operation he's got going, and Edwin Wells, I think, is on the show.
I think he's working out at Edwin's shop right
Edwin's
now.
shop
isn't he?
right now, and so we're excited.
Well, if Edwin's on the show, I hope Melanie's bringing food.
Me too.
So that'll be a good show next week.
So
Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we want to thank Pete Butler here and Cody Gardner
very much
for
so.
taking an hour out of their time tonight to be guests on Tuesday Night Tune-Up. And again, we want to thank our sponsors this week, Chambers Bank, 26 locations in Arkansas. We want to thank Weston Petroleum in Plummerville, Arkansas, as well as True Grit Auction Company up in Dardanelle, Arkansas. Again, they are the state's #1 leader in online auctions, so be sure to check them out for all your auction needs. Or like I say, check their website out if you're looking to bid on something in particular. They got a lot of auctions going. Check them out. And also, got to thank our good friends up in Batesville, Arkansas at Shaw Race Cars, builders of some of the finest modifieds anywhere in the world. So, for our guest host, Heath Tate, the Chameleon of Motorsports, Pete Butler, and Cody Gardner, I'm Bill Gilkey, and we'll see you back next Tuesday night in Morrilton, Arkansas.